time is 1:15. Here is the news, edited by Romesh Peris, read by Victor Raj. Here are the headlines of the local news. President Ranil Wickremesinghe says China will not be allowed to use the southern port of Hambantota for military purposes. The foreign minister briefs the diplomatic corps on current developments. Sri Lanka included in UK's new developing countries trading scheme. The PBM allocates 2,000 million rupees to purchase paddy this season. A 100,000 metric ton crude oil assignment expected today. The state broadcaster felicitated Professor Sangit Nipun Sanat Nandasiri. International news, US President Biden signs health tax and climate bill into law. Sports news, cricket. Shamariyata Batu to play in the inaugural women's CPL. Local news in detail. President Ranil Wickremesinghe stated that China will not be allowed to use the southern port of Hambantota for military purposes, apparently attempting to allay fears in India and the US about China increasing maritime presence in the strategic Indo-Pacific region. President Wickremesinghe stated this in an interview with the Yomiuri Shimbun, a newspaper at the President's house in Colombo, ahead of the arrival of the high-tech Chinese research ship Yuan Wang 5, which on Tuesday docked to the Hambantota port. Beijing took over the Hambantota port on a 99-year lease as a debt swap in 2017. Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri met the Colombo-based ambassadors and high commissioners recently at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for a briefing on current developments ahead of the 51st session of the Human Rights Council in Geneva. Attorney General Sanjay Rajaratnam, Foreign Secretary Aruni Vijayawardena and Finance Secretary Mahinda Sirivardena also contributed to the briefing. Minister Sabri outlined the current developments in Sri Lanka, including the democratic transition of the office in accordance with the Constitution. During the discussion that followed the presentation, the resident coordinator of the United States, Hannah Singh Hamdi, expressed appreciation for the consistent efforts of the government in facing the challenges and expanding the social safety net of vulnerable groups. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Continuing with more local news, Sri Lanka is included in the UK's new developing countries trading scheme, replacing the UK's generalised system of the preference in early 2023. Sri Lanka is categorised under enhanced performance, where UK will lower the remove tariffs on an additional 156 products, with more than 85% of the eligible lines to benefit from zero tariffs. The DCTS is one of the most generous preference schemes in the world. It provides duty-free, quota-free trade to LDCs on everything but arms, and duty-free, quota-free trade on 85% of the eligible goods to most listed investment companies and low and middle-income countries. A 100,000 metric ton crude oil consignment is expected to arrive in Colombo today. A second crude oil consignment of 120,000 metric tons is scheduled to arrive between the 23rd and the 29th of August. The Sapugaskanda refinery is expected to commence operations with the arrival of the crude oil. The chairman of the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation, Hudson Samarasinghe, says the state broadcaster should be treated as the centerpiece of all artists from all walks of life. He made these remarks at the felicitation ceremony to mark Professor Sangit Nipun Sanat Nandasiri's lifetime achievements as an artist and in the immeasurable contribution he has made to the music industry of this country. Chairman Samarasinghe further said that the state broadcaster should be impartial, unbiased to ensure the continuity as the pioneer broadcaster of the nation. The ceremony took place at the Kumaratunga Auditorium at the SLBC premises and as a tribute to Professor Nandasiri. A portrait was unveiled in a famous corridor of the SLBC premises. A foreign national who was in possession of a stock of cocaine valued to the tune of 245 million rupees has been taken into custody at the Bandar Naik International Airport in Kattunayake. The arrest was made by the Narcotic Control Unit of Sri Lanka Customs. According to reports, the suspect had arrived on this island via Qatar Airways from Colombia. The cocaine whole, which weighed at least 5 kilograms, was found hidden inside the paper rolls used in fax machines. The suspect has been handed over to the Police Narcotic Bureau for further investigation. That ends local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhaloka Vedamahatma.
Agriculture Minister Mahinda Amaravira presented a cabinet paper to the cabinet yesterday to provide a higher price of paddy to the paddy farmers. The minister announced that on the advice of the subcommittee appointed by the Cabinet for Paddy Marketing Board to purchase paddy, the cabinet approved the purchase of paddy by the PMB from today. Under these, arrangements have been made to buy a kilo of nadu rice at 120 rupees, a kilo of samba rice at 125 rupees, and a kilo of khiri samba rice at 130 rupees. Considering that fact, farmers are complaining that the price of the kilo of paddy in the market has decreased. The Paddy Marketing Board intervened to provide the maximum price to the farmers' paddy products. Under the first phase, 2,000 million rupees has been spent and 30,000 metric tons is expected to be purchased.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhaloka Vedamahatma.
Watch Life is brought to you by
A Strength to Your Life. CIB Janajaya Vasana has commenced. Valuable gifts and all bills are on 31st of October. Come to CIB today.
The Minister of Health says that 1,590 dengue cases were reported in the last week. The National Dengue Control Unit said that 50.8% of patients are reported from the Western Province. The NDCU noted that 56 MOH divisions have been designated as dengue high-risk zones. The latest MOH divisions added to the list are Akurana, Mathale Municipal Council, Ambalanguda, Baryapula, Ahaliagoda, Ambilipetia and Galigamua. The Minister of Health also said that nearly 50,000 dengue cases have been reported so far this year.
A Strength to Your Life. CIB Janajaya Vasana has commenced. Valuable gifts and all bills are on 31st of October. Come to CIB today.
Moving on to world news, headlines first. U.S. President Biden signs health, tax and climate bill into law. Lula holds lead as Brazil's election campaign officially begins. NASA readies giant moon rocket Artemis for maiden flight. World news in detail. U.S. President Joe Biden has signed a $700 billion bill that aims to fight healthcare costs and climate change while raising tax mainly on the rich. The act includes measures to make good and decades of congressional promises to curb the price of prescription drugs. Final version is more modest in scope than the $3.5 trillion package first envisaged by Democrats. A flagship of Mr. Biden's agenda, the bill could provide a boost ahead of the midterm elections. The president hailed the bill as he signed it on Tuesday as the final piece of his domestic agenda. Brazil's former left-wing president Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva holds a double-digit lead over the far-right incumbent Jair Bolsonaro. A new poll has shown as the country's tightly contested presidential election campaign officially kicks off. Bolsonaro and Lula, who have been reality been on the campaign trail for months, held rival events on Tuesday in what experts say is one of the most polarized campaigns in decades. The American Space Agency NASA is rolling out its giant new moon rocket to prepare it for a maiden flight. Known as the Space Launch System, the vehicle is being taken to Pad 39B at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida for a liftoff scheduled for 29th August. The debut outing is a test with no crew on board. But further missions will send astronauts back to the lunar surface for the first time in over 50 years. The near 100 meters tall SLBC is reading an immense tractor to the pad. To wrap up the world news, let's take a look at the headlines once again. U.S. President Biden signs health tax and climate bill into law. Lula holds lead as Brazil's election campaign officially begins. NASA readies giant moon rocket Artemis for maiden flight. That ends world news. Moving on to development news. Minister of Power and Energy says that India's Adani Group Energies has been issued provisional approvals for 2 wind emergency projects in Mana and Punareen for an investment of over $500 million. In a Twitter message, Minister Vijay Sekhar said that 21 of 46 projects that were delayed due to the Ceylon Electricity Board Act amendments will enter into power purchase agreements next week. Furthermore, he added that 26 renewable energy proposals from expressions of interest that were given provisional approvals are to be expedited with grid clearance and transmission plans. He said the other proposals are to be evaluated within 30 days. That ends development news.
Sports News is brought to you by
Sampath Bank. We present your future.
Cricket news. Sri Lanka captain Chamari Athapaththu is scheduled to take part in the inaugural Women's Caribbean Premier League tournament. South African trio of the Ayabonga Kaka, Sean Lewis and Sri Trayon and Sri Lanka's Athapaththu are part of 9 overseas players set to take part in the inaugural Women's CPL. Players have been split into 3 teams which will also be involved in a T10 tournament called 60. Matches start on the August 24th and go until September 4th. Meanwhile, in tennis news, British number 1 Emma Raducanu put a damper on Serena Williams' farewell tour after thrashing the American great in the Cincinnati Open first round. Williams, aged 40, plans to retire after the US Open, which starts on 29th of August, and lost 6-4, 6-0 in what is said to be the penultimate event of the career. The 23-time Grand Slam champion lacked sharpness, and her 19-year-old opponent punished her in a composed display. Reigning US Open champion Raducanu will play Victoria Azarenka in round 2. That ends sports news.
Cash through NSP globally and win wonderful gifts locally. From October 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. Remit a minimum of $100 or an equivalent amount in any foreign currency 3 times through NSB You Trust.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Responding to the critical needs of the people affected by the severe floods in the Navalapiti region, HNB Finance PLC Navalapiti branch spearheaded an expedited campaign recently to supply rations in an effort to provide relief and nutrition to those affected by the flooding caused due to continuous rain. The Navalapiti HNB branch, who showcased an exceptional level of teamwork, were able to distribute a total of 500 food packets. clothes and sanitary rations to affected victims. HNB Finance has actively been involved in activities that represent community contribution and social responsibility since the inception.
Business News, sponsored by
Cash through NSP globally and win wonderful gifts locally. Will you be the lucky winner of the NSP Golden Jubilee? 50 gold sovereigns for the top prize winner of the NSP Golden Jubilee. Scooters for the 10 second prize winners. iPhones for the 10 third prize winners. Mountain bikes for the 29 fourth prize winners. From October 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. Remit a minimum of $100 or an equivalent amount in any foreign currency 3 times through NSB You Trust.
Economic news, courtesy of
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
Sri Lankan exporters falling under select categories will be able to further benefit from the trading with the United Kingdom as the independent trading nation yesterday announced its decision to cut import taxes on several products from some of the world's poorest nations. The objective of the move is to boost trade links between the UK and selected developing countries. The effort that will be rolled out under the Developing Countries Trading Scheme includes Sri Lanka. That ends Economic News.
LOLC Finance is taking the power of innovation to the next level, winning 5 golds at the Technovation Awards 2022, leading the digital revolution with cutting-edge interbanking digital payments. LOLC Finance claims the overall gold award whilst also claiming an extraordinary victory in digital banking. LOLC Finance will continue to innovate with the next generation digitalization of financial services, delivering a superior customer experience.
Finally, on to the weather report. The Department of Meteorology predicts showers or thunder showers to occur at several places in the central, over eastern, northern and north central provinces during the evening or night. A few showers may occur in the western and sub-regional provinces and in Galle and Mathura districts. The general public is kindly requested to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by the temporarily localized strong winds and lightning during the thunder showers. That ends weather report. To wrap up the afternoon news on Radio Sri Lanka, let's take a look at the headlines once again. President Ranil Wickremesinghe states China will not be allowed to use southern port of Hambantota for military purposes. The foreign minister briefed the diplomatic corps on current developments. Sri Lanka included in the UK's new developing countries trading scheme. The PMB allocates 2,000 million rupees to purchase paddy this season. A 100,000 metric ton crude oil consignment expected today. The state broadcaster felicited Professor Sangit Nipun Sanath Nandasiri. International news, US President Biden signs health, tax and climate bill into law. Sports news, cricket. Chamariyata Bhatta to play in the inaugural Women's CPL. With that, we wrap up the afternoon news on Radio Sri Lanka.